Let's get some more analysis on the failed coup. Gulnur Aybet joins me now. She's the director of the Center for Security Studies here at Istanbul's Bahçeşehir University. Gulnur, great to have you on. It's been a long day for all of us, but when you look at the failed coup attempt, a lot of success is being credited to the people as well as media. Let's get your take on this.
Yeah, I think that's true. The media were amazing because I was actually on one of the channels and I left around 10 when it all happened and I was stuck on the bridge. So I was actually seeing it as the whole thing was happening. And all the time the driver had the channel on the radio. And from the very beginning, they decided to broadcast everything and to, take a very sort of anti-coup stance. And we could see this happening throughout the evening with lots of other channels. And they continued broadcasting throughout the night. So I think that was really important. When the president was on two of these channels through his phone and urged the people to take to the streets, and they did. I think that was a big turning point. But also, I think another contributing factor was this is a very small group, small fraction within the wider armed forces, and they didn't really have the support of the wider armed forces because we're seeing all these senior officers, generals coming out and condemning it and saying this was not normal in the chain of command. And the recent arrest actually is one general who was quite high up. I think he's the head of the Second Army. So that's been the most senior arrest that we've seen so far. But by and large, the other generals were not really that senior in the sort of structure of the Turkish general staff. So I think because it was a smaller group, and also the other thing I saw on the bridge was that, yes, I mean, it was pretty scary because they were pretty determined and they'd blocked off the entire lane and, they had their rifles and they were shouting at people, but it was a small group. And I realized as I was watching things unravel throughout the evening when I finally managed to get home because there were a lot of roadblocks. But I was watching it on the television, I could see that, they had taken over some strategic pinpoints and buildings, but they couldn't hold on to them for very long because in each strategic holding that they'd taken, the numbers, again, were not that high. So 50 to 100 men. I believe about that number stormed TRT last night as well, so TRT World last night as well.
So go off air. So this does differ in a lot of ways with the previous coups that we actually seen in Turkey's history in the last 50 years.
Yeah, exactly, because when you look at previous coups, for example, let's take the 1980 coup. I mean, this was orchestrated by a handful of very senior generals, one of them being the Chief of General Staff. And you had the whole apparatus of the army out there taking control immediately. I mean, last night what you saw was sporadic taking over of certain places by smaller groups. And they moved swiftly. You have to sort of give them credit for that. But although they moved swiftly and they were able to block roads and take over these buildings, they were not able to hold on to them for very long. And of course, the other thing that's different from previous coups is that I think civil society and people power in Turkey has moved to an entirely different league, and there's no going back. And we really saw that on the streets last night.
So how important was the call by the country's president on FaceTime, on live television, calling everybody out to the streets?
Extremely important. I mean, he did it first on CNN Turk and then I think on TV. I was watching this and it's really important that you see something coming out of, for example, a channel that is known to be more critical of the government, actually broadcasting the president on FaceTime, urging people to take to the streets. And, I knew quite a lot of people who were out there last night. And, what we've been seeing is that there's a wide spectrum of people from all kinds of political beliefs and affiliations who are standing side by side. And, out of this awful polarization, last night you could see a unified stance because everyone was against this coup attempt. So I think, that in itself was quite historic.
So how important did the role of social media play in this? Because social media has been been
I know.
criticized in this country in the past before.
Yeah, I know, especially, I mean, during the Gezi protests, there was so much misinformation. And I remember last night when one of my students was the first one to be trapped on the bridge, we all thought, before we got on the bridge, actually, he was there before us, 20 minutes before us. And he said, you know, there's soldiers here, so much is going on. And I said, you know, it must be a terror alert, so just stay put, and I'm sure it'll be all right. None of us wanted to believe it was a coup, even though, you know, we were getting tweets saying it might be one. And I said, this is just social media exaggerating and going wild initially, but once you're on the bridge and you could see that, and for I think social media last night was much more responsible, should I say, or sensible than it had been in the past, because you know, they were actually, you know, relaying events as they were happening, rather than, you know, creating a lot of sensationalism. So we were actually following what was happening in real time from social media as well.
Is this the end of the Fethullah Gülen terrorist organization then?
I think that this is the beginning of a very serious clampdown. And the purges had already started, but because they had infiltrated into so many bureaucratic institutions, including the armed forces. But I think, you know, this is going to create such a clean sweep of their presence in the armed forces. It's going to be quite profound.
Okay, Gulnur Aybet from Istanbul's Bahçeşehir University, we thank you very much for joining us here. It's been a long day for us, but we really do appreciate it.